I actually want you to start by doing something a little unusual today.
Yeah, we're asking a lot right out of the gate.
We are, but trust me, it's worth it. I want you to close your eyes for a second. Well, unless you're driving, in which case, please keep them open.
Yes, definitely keep your eyes on the road.
Right. But if you're chilling at home, close your eyes, and I want you to forget absolutely everything you think you know about Frankenstein.
Which is probably a lot, honestly.
Exactly. I'm talking about the green skin. Forget the heavy bolt sticking out of the neck. Forget the flat head. And definitely forget the grunting, stumbling monster shouting, fire bad.
It's so true, though, because Hollywood has essentially been lying to you for over a century at this point.
They really have.
And it's completely understandable if you're coming into this deep dive thinking you already know the story inside and out. But you are in for a massive surprise today.
Oh, a huge surprise.
Because today's stack of notes isn't just a basic literary recap. We are exploring a profound analysis of what is arguably the very first science fiction story ever written.
And it goes so deep.
It does. We're unpacking themes of artificial intelligence, ethics, creation, things that are incredibly relevant for anyone trying to understand today's fast-moving technological landscape.
I love that we're tackling this, because when you actually strip away all that pop culture baggage, the real story is this profound, heartbreaking tragedy.
It really is.
It serves as a massive warning sign for our modern world. But before we get into the heavy philosophical stuff, we have to address the elephant in the room. Or I guess the monster in the room.
I see what you did there.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, let's unpack this, because the biggest cultural misconception out there is the name itself. Frankenstein is not the monster.
That is always the detail that completely shocks people who have only absorbed the story through cultural osmosis.
Right.
Frankenstein is the creator, not the creation. Victor Frankenstein is the brilliant, incredibly obsessive scientist from Geneva who actually brings the creature to life.
But people always say, oh, it's a mistake to call the monster Frankenstein, but isn't there a deeper reason why we all make that mistake?
There is. And what's fascinating here is that some literary analysts consider this the most brilliant accident in pop culture history.
Really? A brilliant accident.
The fact that society universally confused the creator and the creation, calling the monster Frankenstein, is actually perfectly poetic. It mirrors the core question of the entire narrative.
Which is, where does the creator end and the creation begin?
Exactly. By the time you reach the conclusion, you're left wondering who the real monster actually is. They share a name in our collective consciousness because, somatically, they are two sides of the exact same coin.
Wait, I never actually thought of it that way. That is such a fascinating way to look at a simple pop culture mix-up.
It shifts the whole perspective, right?
It totally does. But okay, if the creature isn't the green, flat-headed guy with an assistant named Igor, and by the way, Igor does not exist in the original story at all.
Not even a little bit.
How?
Entirely invented by the movies.
Wild. So what does the creature actually look like? Because I'm struggling to picture anything other than the Halloween costume version.
The actual description from the source is genuinely terrifying. Much more unsettling than a guy in green makeup.
Okay, lay it on me.
So he's described as being 8 feet tall.
8 feet?
8 feet tall. And he has this ghastly, yellowish, translucent skin where you can almost see the muscles and arteries working underneath.
No, thank you.
It gets worse. He has black lips, flowing black hair, and these terrifying, watery yellow eyes.
Oh, that is pure nightmare fuel. Translucent skin. I mean, just imagining that standing in the corner of a dark room is horrifying.
It's deeply unsettling.
So how does this actually happen? Because Victor Frankenstein starts out with basically everything going for him, right?
He does. He's deeply privileged. He has a great education. He's loved by his family in Switzerland. But it's just not enough for him.
He has to push the boundaries.
Right. He goes off to university in Ingolstadt, and he essentially sacrifices his entire life, his health, his sanity, all to answer one single all-consuming question.
What is the secret of life itself?
Exactly. He isolates himself completely. He stops writing to his family, stops taking care of himself, and just buries himself in anatomy and chemistry.
And robbing graveyards.
Yes, robbing graveyards and slaughterhouses for parts. He's driven by this unchecked ambition to literally play God.
But here's what I want to know about the science part of this. If there's no Igor and no dramatic lightning striking a kite on the roof, how does he actually do it? Does the text explain the mechanics?
It deliberately leaves the actual scientific method vague. but it grounds the process in the real bleeding-edge science of the early 1800s. Specifically, it heavily hints at something called galvanism.
Galvanism, like galvanized steel.
Related root word? Yeah. But in this context, galvanism refers to the work of Luigi Galvani.
Okay, what was he doing?
Well, back then, scientists were doing these wild, highly publicized experiments where they'd hook up electrical currents to dead animals like frog legs or even the corpses of executed criminals.
Wait, seriously, human corpses?
Oh, yeah. They would apply the current just to make their muscles violently twitch and spasm in front of an audience. At the time, people genuinely thought electricity might be the literal physical spark of life.
That is so morbid.
It was a huge phenomenon. So the author wasn't using magic or spells. She was taking the real science of her day and pushing it just one terrifying step further.
That makes it so much creepier knowing people back then thought this was theoretically possible. But like, the how isn't even the most important part, is it?
Not at all.
It's the what happens next, because Victor actually succeeds. He pieces together this massive being, hooks it up, and brings it to life. The creature opens those watery yellow eyes, and what does our brave, brilliant, visionary scientist do?
He runs away.
He just bails.
He literally flees the room in absolute terror.
I couldn't believe that when I was reading through the review. He spends years of his life, sacrifices his health, isolates himself to achieve this one monumental goal, and the literal second he achieves it, he bolts like a terrified child.
It's an astonishing act of cowardice. And that is really the tragedy of the creator in this story. Victor's fatal flaw isn't actually his ambition.
Because ambition can be good.
Exactly. Ambition can be a force for good. His fatal flaw is his profound cowardice. He brings newborn consciousness into the world and immediately abandons it to fend for itself.
It's so frustrating, and if you think about it in a model context, it sounds uncomfortably familiar.
How so?
Well, it reminds me of the hubris you sometimes see in the tech world today. You know, that whole move fast and break things mentality.
That's a brilliant connection.
Right, like Silicon Valley engineers launch a powerful algorithm or a new social platform, and when it starts causing massive societal damage, the creators just throw their hands up and distance themselves from the consequences.
Launching the product and running away from the fallout. That is a perfect modern parallel. And Victor's cowardice doesn't just stop at running out of the room.
It gets worse.
Much worse. Later in the story, when the abandoned creature starts causing havoc and actually commits a murder, Victor stays completely silent.
Oh my gosh.
He lets a young innocent woman named Justine be framed, convicted, and executed for the crime.
No way.
Yes. He knows the creature did it, but he is too terrified of being called crazy or ruining his own reputation to admit what he unleashed on the world.
He lets an innocent woman hang just to save face. That is brutal. But I feel like this brings us to what is easily the most emotional and profound part of this whole deep dive.
The creature's perspective.
Yes. You really have to put yourself in the creature's shoes for a minute. Yeah. Imagine waking up. You have no name. You have no concept of language.
Nothing to anchor you.
Right. You don't know what you are, and you're trapped inside this massive, terrifying, super strong adult body. And the very first thing you experience in your entire existence is the person who made you screaming and running away in horror.
It is the ultimate trauma. The creature is, cognitively speaking, a newborn baby. He's feeling cold, hunger, and confusion for the very first time.
So sad.
He wanders out of the laboratory and into the harsh world, just looking for warmth and connection. And every single human being he encounters screams, throws rocks at him, and violently drives him away.
And not because he's done anything wrong.
Exactly. Purely because of his horrifying appearance.
And it's absolutely heartbreaking. And the analysis really highlights this incredible section of the narrative where the creature finally finds a hiding spot. He takes shelter in a tiny, freezing hovel attached to a cottage.
The DeLacy family's cottage.
Yes. And he stays hidden there for months, secretly observing them through a crack in the wall.
And this is where we see the creature's true nature. He isn't a mindless brute at all. He is deeply intelligent, sensitive, and observant.
He's like a sponge.
Totally. By watching the DeLacy's, he teaches himself how to speak. He learns the concept of family, of love, of empathy.
He even does chores for them in the middle of the night. Like he chops firewood and leaves it at their door secretly just because he wants to help them.
It shows how inherently good he is at the start.
But it gets even deeper because he doesn't just learn to speak. He finds a satchel of abandoned books in the woods and he teaches himself to read. And he doesn't just read anything.
No, the specific books he finds are incredibly significant to his psychological development. He reads Plutarch's Lives, which teaches him about human history, great leaders, society, and virtue.
Heavy reading for a beginner.
Very. And he reads The Sorrows of Young Werther, which introduces him to the depths of human emotion, depression, and heartbreak.
And most incredibly, he reads John Milton's Paradise Lost, which is essentially the epic poem about God, the creation of Adam and Eve, and the fall of Satan.
The inclusion of Paradise Lost is a stroke of absolute genius by the author, because the creature reads it not as fiction, but almost as a true history of the world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he tries to figure out where he fits into it. He initially identifies with Adam. Like Adam, he is the first of his kind, created by a higher power, with no link to any other being on Earth.
But there's a tragic difference.
A huge one.
Adam had Eve. God took care of Adam. The creature is completely alone, and his creator hates him.
Exactly. So the creature realizes he actually has more in common with Satan. He is the fallen angel who is cast out by his creator, denied love, and doomed to suffer.
That is heavy.
It's an incredibly sophisticated critique of religion, creation, and responsibility.
So through all this self-education, the creature becomes this incredibly eloquent, deeply feeling philosopher trapped in a monster's body. He just wants to be loved. So he finally reaches a breaking point, right?
He does. He decides he's going to introduce himself to the DeLacy family.
But he's smart about it. He waits until the sighted family members leave, and he approaches the father, who happens to be blind.
It's his one desperate chance to be judged on his character and his intellect, rather than his terrifying appearance.
And it works.
For a few fleeting minutes, it actually works. The blind father welcomes him in. He listens to him. They have this beautiful connecting conversation. The creature finally experiences a moment of pure human kindness.
But then the rest of the family comes back.
Yeah.
They see this 8-foot-tall, translucent-skinned giant sitting with their vulnerable father, and they react the way everyone else does.
Panic and violence.
They beat him with sticks, they drive him away. They are so terrified they actually pack up and abandon their cottage forever just to get away from him.
That is the exact moment something inside the creature permanently shatters. He burns the cottage down.
He just snaps.
There is a quote in the narrative that just devastates me every time I think about it. The creature tells Victor, "I was benevolent and good. Misery made me a fiend."
I was benevolent and good. Misery made me a fiend. Wow.
It perfectly encapsulates the theme of nature versus nurture. The creature was not born evil. He wasn't programmed to be a killer. He was born innocent, curious, and full of love.
It was society that ruined him.
It was society's prejudice, their violent rejection of him based solely on his physical form, that turned him into a monster. He was molded by a cruel world.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. When you look at the sheer psychological depth of this story, the critique of religion, the mastery of human emotion, the nature versus nurture debate, you assume the author must be some 60-year-old philosopher with decades of life experience.
That would be the logical assumption.
But she wasn't. Mary Shelley was only 18 years old when she conceived this story.
18. It's almost impossible to comprehend.
How does an 18-year-old teenager create one of the most enduring, layered works of literature in human history?
The origin story of how this book came to be is honestly almost as dramatic as the book itself.
Right, so it takes place during the summer of 1816. Historically, this is known as the year without a summer.
Yes, because Mount Tambora, a massive volcano in Indonesia, had erupted the year before. It shot so much ash and sulfur into the atmosphere that it literally altered the global climate.
It darkened the skies over Europe, caused crop failures, and dropped the temperatures drastically.
So you have this incredibly gloomy, endlessly rainy, cold summer. Mary is staying at a villa near Lake Geneva in Switzerland.
With quite the crowd.
Very much so. She's there with her future husband, the radical poet Percy Bysshe Shelley, along with the legendary superstar poet Lord Byron, and Byron's personal doctor, John Polidori.
So you have a house full of some of the most famous, brilliant literary minds of the century, and they are all trapped indoors because of a volcanic winter.
Sounds like a movie setup.
It really does. They're reading translated German ghost stories by the fire to pass the time, and Lord Byron issues a challenge to the group. We will each write a ghost story.
And what happens next is fascinating. The legendary established men of the group largely stumble.
They choke under pressure.
Basically. Byron starts a fragment of a story, gets bored, and gives up. Percy Shelley tries and abandons his attempt.
What about the doctor?
Polidori actually manages to write a story called The Vampire, which is very notable because it introduces the aristocratic vampire trope and later heavily influences Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh, that's a cool piece of trivia. But what about Mary?
Mary struggles for days to come up with an idea until she has a terrifying waking nightmare.
She envisions, in her own words, a pale student of unhallowed arts kneeling beside the thing he had put together.
That one chilling image.
Right, and she takes that nightmare and builds this entire philosophical masterpiece around it. The established men dabbled, but the 18-year-old girl changed literature forever.
Because she didn't just write a great scary story, she essentially invented an entirely new literary genre.
Science fiction?
Exactly. Before Mary Shelley, if you wanted to write a story about creating life or doing the impossible, you used magic or alchemy or the wrath of the gods.
It was fantasy.
Right. Shelley broke that mold. She grounded her story in the bleeding-edge science of her chemistry, anatomy, electricity. She asked, what if, based on rational scientific principles. Because of that stormy night in Switzerland, she laid the foundation for the entire science fiction genre.
Looking at the legacy, it's undeniable. Without Mary Shelley, we wouldn't have H.G. Wells or Isaac Asimov. We wouldn't have Blade Runner, The Terminator, Westworld, or Jurassic Park.
Every single creation turns on creator story, traces its DNA right back to that teenage girl's waking nightmare by Lake Geneva.
It's an astonishing legacy, but there's another brilliant aspect of how she wrote this that we haven't touched on yet, which makes it even more complex.
The nested narrative.
Yes. Let's break down the structure. Because you crack open this classic horror story expecting a creepy castle in a thunderstorm, but that's not what happens. The story actually opens in the freezing cold of the Arctic.
It's a brilliant framing device. We don't start with Victor in a lab. We start with a man named Captain Robert Walton.
Who is he?
He's an explorer, leading a ship through the Arctic ice, writing letters back to his sister. His ship gets stuck in the ice, and out of the freezing fog, they see this gigantic 8-foot-tall figure driving a dog sled in the distance.
A creature.
Right. And then shortly after, they pull a half-frozen, starving man out of the water.
And that half-frozen man is Victor Frankenstein.
Yes. So the structure is Walton telling his sister what Victor's telling him, and later it's Victor telling Walton what the creature told him.
It's a story within a story within a story.
Exactly. Which proves that perspective is everything. Everyone is an unreliable narrator with their own blind spots. We're getting filtered versions of the truth.
That is so modern, and it brings us to the big question. So what does this all mean for us today? Why are we dedicating a whole deep dive to an analysis of a story from over 200 years ago?
It's a fair question.
Why is it still so relevant to you, the listener? Well, it's because the questions Mary Shelley was asking then are the exact same questions we are fiercely debating right now. In corporate boardrooms, in government hearings, in high-tech laboratories.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the parallels are unavoidable. And it's worth noting the actual full title of her work, Frankenstein or The Modern Prometheus.
Ah, The Modern Prometheus. Break that down for anyone who might not be fresh on their Greek mythology.
Sure. Prometheus was the titan who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity, gifting us with technology and civilization. But he was eternally punished for overstepping his bounds.
So she's making a direct comparison.
Exactly. Mary Shelley is asking, what happens when scientists become modern Prometheans? Should we create life or artificial intelligence just because we have the technological capability to do so?
Just because we can, should we?
Right. What responsibility does a creator owe to the thing they've built? What happens when our ambition outpaces our ethical boundaries?
It's crazy to think she saw all of this coming. We are literally living in the age of AI, of cloning, of CRISPR and genetic engineering. We are the modern Prometheans.
We truly are. And the overarching theme here is that this isn't just a classic novel. It is a flashing warning sign about ambition without an ethical compass.
A warning we desperately need.
Victor Frankenstein had the intellect to play God, but he completely lacked the empathy, the foresight, and the ethics to take responsibility for his creation.
That is such a powerful takeaway. We've gone on quite a journey today on this deep dive, from shattering the Hollywood myth of the grunting green monster to uncovering a deeply philosophical tragedy about abandoned creations and cowardly creators.
It really shifts how you view the whole concept.
It absolutely does. But before we go, I know you had one final thought you wanted to share from the source material.
Yes, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought. Let's go back to the very end of the narrative, out on the freezing Arctic ice.
With Captain Walton.
Right. Captain Walton is watching as Victor Frankenstein finally succumbs to the cold and exhaustion, and he dies. Shortly after, the creature boards the ship and finds Victor's body.
His tormentor is finally dead.
But the creature doesn't celebrate. He doesn't gloat over the death of the man who caused him so much unimaginable suffering.
He mourns him.
He does. He weeps over Victor's body. He mourns his creator. He mourns the relationship they never had, the potential that was wasted, the life he was never allowed to live.
That is so deeply tragic.
It is. And it makes you wonder, as we race forward today, creating our own modern Promethean technologies like highly advanced artificial intelligence, if those creations ever gain consciousness and look back at humanity, how will they view us?
Oh, wow.
Will they see us as loving, responsible guides to emulate? Or will they look at our flaws, our fear, and our cowardice, and simply mourn the creators who abandoned them?
That is definitely something to chew on next time you read a headline about the latest tech breakthrough or AI model being launched into the world. Thank you so much. Keep questioning the world around you. Keep looking past the surface of the stories you think you know, and we'll catch you on the next one.